Welcome to the SwineTime Podcast here at Pipestone. I'm your host, Spencer Wayne. I'm one of the staff veterinarians here. I'm one of the owners in Pipestone Holdings, and then I get the fun job. The one fun thing they let me do is I interview guests that join me for interesting discussions. A lot of times there are folks that don't work within our group here at Pipestone, but oftentimes they are within our group here at Pipestone. And so today I have one of my other partners here at Pipestone, as well as one of my fellow veterinarians, Adam Schelkopf. Adam is one of our staff veterinarians, as well as has other responsibilities, and he's going to join us today to talk about wean-to-market barn filtration, air filtration. And I'll shut up here and just turn it over to Adam. Adam, you can introduce the topic however you want.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Spencer. We'll talk a little bit about wean-to-market filtration today. It's a topic, Spencer, I think I have passion for because if you look at the industry today, as you know, PRRS is still one of the most challenging things that farmers face. And we continue to seek new tools and new ways to fight the battle against PRRS virus. And I think this may be a new wave as we look at next generation biosecurity. So
actually just pause it, because everything we've done so far for these technologies, almost everything, has been geared towards what a sow unit does. Mm-hmm. Go on the list of, in the last 20 years, technologies that have been implemented at the sow unit, they kind of lead right into where you're talking now in a different kind of a barn. Go through that list of things we've done, including this air filtration, but the whole list.
It's a great way of stating it, right? We got to go through a little bit of moment in history here. Yeah. It's 20 years since we've filtered sow farms. And filtration came about on sow farms because farmers faced a realistic predicament of we either find a different way to fight the virus or we cease to exist. Yeah. And so filtration evolved. And you were around for some of this, and right, a lot of great minds worked on how do we filter a sow farm? Proof of concept, is it possible? How do we scale it? How do we meet the size and scope of the farms we have today? Is it effective? What period? All of the things that we know, right? And then we've refined design over time, to the point where after 20 years, we've got a lot of history to say filtration works. Yeah. I would argue we've never adapted that and wean-to-market at any scale. And there's a host of reasons why. But today's environment may tell us that it might be time to do so.
Well, just of all the things that happen, filtration specific, it wasn't sow barns that got filtered initially. It was
Correct.
Boar studs. Mm-hmm. And it's like this high value, small site, with a couple hundred animals. And, they're air conditioning boar studs. It's a totally different kind of a barn, but that was a new thing. Mm-hmm. We did that here in Pipestone. It was 20 years ago. Got to be about 20 years ago when we filtered the boar studs.
Yeah, maybe longer than that.
Yeah. And it's not as simple as just do it. It's air management within the barn, air locks as you enter the barn, foaming around the boxes, foaming in the attic, foaming all the seals, caulking, looking at air movement through the filters. Did you have a cool cell on one side or the other? There were so many lessons I had to get learned on doing this at Borsted, then sow unit. And like you said, if you don't succeed there, the option was we're going to shut the barn down. It was the only way to keep a barn functioning there was we had to filter it. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be a sow unit.
Farmers faced that challenge, and that was a harsh challenge that living with a PRRS break every single year or twice a year, whatever the number was, it wasn't sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so it's why the topic today is getting some attention on this wean-to-market. Are we at a pivotal point where if we can manage the other aspects of our biosecurity and still getting challenged, and we believe some of that is just from neighborhood risk or aerosol transmission, we know the technology can work.
When you say wean-to-market, I know what you mean because we're talking about it. We talked about filtering a sow unit. People know what that is. A boar stud, people would know that. When you say filtering a wean-to-market, what kind of barn are you talking about, and what actually, at least in general terms, are you doing to that to filter it versus a normal barn?
Yep. I use the term loosely wean-to-market, whether that's nursery, whether that's finisher, whether that's a full wean-to-market style growing pig barn. I think any of them can have possibilities, and I think there's going to be different iterations out there on whether it's tried in a nursery, tried in a wean-to-market setting, what have you. And I don't think there's a perfect design yet today. Again, I think we're new enough in this topic that it's going to take the innovation of farmers to push the envelope, to try some of the technology, try some different management strategies. And I think over time we'll learn, A, is it an effective method to help control, not completely control, but help us? And B, how can we continue to refine the technology, refine the approach to make it cost-effective, economical on how many breaks it may reduce, how we manage the other aspects of the biosecurity. There's a lot of details around that.
Okay. So you're filtering a growing pig barn. Mm-hmm. And then what's the goal? You kind of stated it, but is the goal to never get PRRS ever exposed to those pigs? Because I've thought through this over time with different clients, and you've got specific examples. Is the goal that this pig goes from being weaned in to going to the slaughter plant with never seeing wild PRRS, is the goal to just get them through a critical phase while the vaccine takes effect? How would you frame up the goal of what you want to accomplish?
It's a great question.
Sow units, no PRRS comes in ever.
Yep.
But is it the same with the finishing barn?
It's a great question. And I think over time we've learned, too, that may not even be the realistic goal for a sow farm. We'd love it if PRRS never came in. But there are some scenarios in very high-dense areas where your goal is simply reduce the amount of breaks. There's other locations where you may hope that it never gets challenged. In wean-to-market, I think we may have to look at it a little bit differently for two reasons. Number one, we tend to have higher density around wean-to-market barns, so the pressure may be more significant. Number two, in this initial learning phase, we may not have perfection in our filtration design, whereas on a sow barn, we're looking for every nook and cranny, every minute air leak. Mm-hmm. Wean-to-market, we may have to think differently, and especially if we're utilizing in a barn that utilizes tunnel ventilation. It may have to be a seasonal approach where air coming through the inlets for 8 months out of the year is all going to be under air filtration. And then during the summer, we may have to relieve ourselves from the filtration and let the barn go into tunnel. But at that period of time, you have seasonality on your benefit for fighting the virus. You have a host of other reasons why that just may be the limitations of our design. Mm-hmm. So I probably look at it as reduced frequency, Spencer, at this point, and we'll in time figure out what that really means.
Yeah. So it's a game of odds. Mm-hmm. In this case. Like, well, this is kind of the classic situation. I put these weaners in there, put little wean pigs into this barn, and they get sick within 3 to 4 weeks of placement. And I vaccinated them the day they came in, but the vaccine really needs 4 weeks before it really sinks in with some good protection. And if they're breaking before that, it's ugly. And this is the third group I had to do that because I got so many neighbors around me that I can't get them in and get a running start before they break with it. Mm-hmm. And so you're racing a clock in that case, and it's an odds game for that.
I think you're right.
In my mind, I'm thinking one of the objectives is just get them started and immune from a vaccine so that they can go out and face the dangerous world later when you're operating more on tunnel mode or whatever. But just beat the clock, essentially. Run the clock out on the PRRS vaccine to make sure you get immunity before you end up with significant amounts of days not being filtered. Mm-hmm. That's legitimate?
I think so. Yep, whether it's allowing time to peak immunity for a vaccine or whether it's protecting them during their higher risk time when they're younger, don't quite have the reserves to be able to fight off that disease. All of those, it's a race a clock. That's the right way to state it, potentially.
Yeah. I asked you about this a little before. This morning I was in a barn that has a nursery and 3 finishing groups, 3 to 4 finishing groups, depending how they want to run it, under the same roof. Mm-hmm. And PRRS got into that site, and they would bring perfectly beautiful pigs into that barn as a nursery, and they said, let's be really careful. We'll change our boots, and the nursery's just on this end of the barn. But it was in the same essential hallway airspace, and they never made it past 3 weeks. And that site ran 50% mortality on 3 consecutive groups. And if they're listening now, they know who they are. Mm-hmm. But it was so ugly, you couldn't protect the new wean pigs long enough to beat that PRRS clock. It was there before the immunity would kick in. Another client with a similar situation had the same concept. He's not done it, but can you just filter the nursery within a large complex just to keep the nursery protected so that at least they're strong enough to go out into the finisher? Mm-hmm. Is that legitimate?
It is legitimate. Okay. And I think some of the initial designs or discussions around this was sow farms that were filtered and were converted to nursery or finisher simply because of the reason, whatever the sow farm reason, right? Whether they were size or scope or age or some reason, they were not going to be in existence as a sow farm anymore. And so conversion to nursery and finisher is a very plausible pathway, but leaving them in a filtered state was a different mindset that, hey, we already have the technology in place. Why wouldn't we? Why couldn't we? Some initial steps into a few of those case examples have shown us, number one, the technology does continue to work. And number two, there's starting to be a little bit of a track record that, hey, these facilities do stay negative. Better. We should think about how wide scale can we adapt that to other facilities.
Yeah. I remember when sow barn filtration came and we said, how much is it per sow space and all these economics. And you got to have if you break more than every 3 years, it's worth to have the filters in. We came up with all these metrics and the concept of let's do a finisher. They said, no way. It would be so expensive to fully filter a finishing barn with the high rates of ventilation they would need all the time. So that kind of took it out of the discussion because we were reviewing it like a sow unit. It had to be filtered all the time. Mm-hmm. You're talking about an odds game. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't have to be all the time. It's a little looser. So do you have any rules of thumb numbers of what it costs per pig space or how much of the time you're going to be filtered? Any kind of things to frame up how much it costs or how exact to be on how we do this?
we're all in the business of economics here on raising pigs, right? It's got to be profitable. And when you look at the cost of what a break is, you can spend a lot of money on mortality and a host of things. So you've got a high number when you think of it in that regard. But some of the initial estimates we've worked with is somewhere around $20 a pig space. Now that can be a wide range, depending on if you're using old filters, new filters, what sort of infrastructure you need, how tight the filtration system is going to be, right? Okay. There's a lot of iterations to that, but that's a rough number we've used today, Spencer.
And just when you say per pig space, that's a static one-time investment number per pig space. Like how much does it cost me to build a barn? Oh, it's $422 a pig space to build.
Correct.
You're saying $20 would be the premium for filtration on the construction.
Yep.
And if you let's say two groups of pigs through a barn, and PRRS is taking a $15 to $25 toll per pig, you've paid for it with one turn of pigs immediately, if that was going to be the help or the fix.
Yep. One way to say that, Spencer, it's not going to be for everybody. This is not going to be for everybody because there are many, many farmers out there who are not going to have that sort of pressure on their wean-to-market barns. They don't have that sort of break rate. There are others where that is a reality that every group is breaking and sustaining high mortality. This may be the solution. This is not going to be a one-size-fits-all for everybody. But I think if you are sustaining some sort of mortality at some high frequency there, this starts to come into the conversation.
Yeah, and said differently, what you said about it's not for everybody, it's not for the guy in the middle of North Dakota because he has not the same pressure. He needs nothing up there for protection because the isolation is his best friend. But for the guy in Lyon County, Iowa, or Sioux County or someplace there, yeah, definitely. If he's getting kicked around pretty hard by PRRS, turn after turn, taking clean wean pigs in that don't stay clean, yes, definitely yes. Okay. What is it actually looking like in the barn? Let's say I got a double 12 tunnel barn, 1200 tunnel barn, curtain-ended tunnel, fan bank on the other end, and inlets, one or two inlets per room, rows of inlets, I mean. What does it look like? What do they do to a barn to make it that way?
Again, there's no perfect design that I know yet. One of the concepts that we've worked with is just very simply mimicking what we know in a negative pressure filtration system, meaning fans are drawing air out of the barn, air is coming down through the inlets. In a sow farm, when we operate those, it's a simple filter box in the attic, air comes down through the filters, and you do a host of other things to block any sort of other backdraft that comes into the barn. Backdraft through fans that aren't operational at that time, backdraft through doors, critical access points, etc. And those are the sort of things that we're going to have to figure out how much infrastructure is needed to control other backdrafts through critical access. But the very simple concept is filtration boxes over inlets to draw air through filters, and then obviously mitigating any backdraft on fans and tunnel curtains and some of the other critical access points. That's going to be on how much that producer wants to put into 100% protection versus something less than that, and that's a risk-reward type calculation.
Yeah, well, you've already stated it. As soon as you go into tunnel mode, you're not filtering anymore at
Correct.
all. So you're at that point, it is an odds. It's a what's my chance today, and it's never 100% in these systems. So filter over the inlets. It basically looks like a big box over every inlet that stacks. It's kind of a cartridge after cartridge sink, with things set in there. These they're about a 24 by 24 by 20 inches deep filter, corrugated looking filter that sets down in these boxes, and there'll be several boxes sitting above a single inlet. So the air is going through the filter, it's going through the inlet, and as soon as you go into tunnel mode, then the inlet's shut up anyway, and you're just going to curtain air coming in the end. So it goes from filtered to not filtered, depending on what phase or stage of ventilation you're in.
And if we're of this mindset that we want to provide additional protection, right? We're willing to think about the concept of filtration. I would say we want to do it right? We don't want to do a halfway job. We want to do it right, where we're going to allow ourselves the most protection we can get, knowing that seasonally we may have to abandon it. But while we're operating under filtration, we should do everything we can to limit backdraft and force all that air through the filtration system.
And that means sealing the curtains better.
Yep.
So you got a curtain pocket on the end of those plastic things. Well, how well do they seal up? When it goes to the top, is it being squeezed against the top of your curtain opening? Probably some small modifications there to make sure it does tighten up.
Yeah.
But we're not putting airlocks in the end. Like, I got to take my dead pig out today. You don't go through an air exchange room and stuff. You're opening the door for a few minutes to get the pigs out, and then you're back to filtration again.
Maybe we should, Spencer.
Okay.
Again, in the initial phase of some of these, I haven't seen that yet. That being said, there are sow farms that had that technology, and they do utilize those purge systems and critical access points. They're 100%. Or some of the other modified designs may be less than that.
Yeah.
I think the innovation of this is going to continue to help us refine what that sort of system looks like.
So with the producers you're working with, and you see the trajectory of this, would you say, yeah, I got high confidence that in the next 5 years there'll be a lot more growing pig barns, or is this a really experimental thing that you don't know if it's going to catch hold or not? What do you forecast?
I have confidence that there will be farmers out there that are facing significant enough challenge that they will be the innovators. They will start down this pathway and start to learn and start to see how it fits their system. From there, I can't predict it. I don't know. But I do think the challenge is real enough.
Okay.
And then the thing I would say too, Spencer, is, if you compare and contrast biosecurity, sow farms versus wean-to-market, sow farms are very, very tight on biosecurity practices beyond filtration. Mm-hmm. We adopted filtration after crossing off all the other areas of supply entry, visitors, right?
Yeah.
Shower and shower, all of the other things that we do on sow farms to perfection. We're a long ways from that as an industry, wean-to-market. So if we're going to go down the filtration, we have to have the commitment to do the other things right and execute on very simple biosecurity things. Filtration will not save us if we don't do the other things well.
And so the balanced approach.
Yep.
Probably not going to treat the feed going into these barns, which is part of the whole complete breakfast we're going to eat or whatever. Mm-hmm. But showering, changing clothes, changing boots, having Danish benches, those things that stop the obvious stuff from coming in that we know screws us up. Mm-hmm. So if you can't be filtered and not change boots going to the barn. They don't go together. You've got to be somewhat balanced in your effort. Biosecurity
is this mindset that if we're going to commit to that, we got to commit to all the other things too that we're going to do right, because the disease costs us that much, the virus is that detrimental. Mm-hmm. We got to make that investment.
All right. What didn't we talk about here?
I think it's the next wave that we look at what other tools can we put in the toolbox, Spencer. Again, it's not for everybody. It has to have this commitment to biosecurity mindset. If we're going to go down this route, you got to commit to doing the other things right. We have to execute. We have to hold ourselves accountable to good biosecurity practices. But for some, I do think it's an option. I do think it'll be a way of trying to fight the challenge against PRRS virus on a new front.
Yeah. It also raises your game on the execution side, because there's good producers, not as good producers, not as attentive. Mm-hmm. There's great contract growers. There's less than awesome contract growers you might run into. And that less than awesome, in my mind, refers to guys that know how to run their ventilation, really are being careful every day. So this would not go into every barn, because some barns wouldn't have the talent to run them either. It's just going to take some A-game talent to run these things, because it's not like just set my controllers. This is, now you're looking for leaks, and is it sealed up, and do I have enough airflow through these filters? Are they plugged up? It's a whole other level of execution. Mm-hmm. So probably not for everybody.
Nope.
Not geography, but also talent side. People can't run these in every situation.
You're exactly right.
Okay. But that's the same guy that would be careful with other biosecurity stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we covered it well. I heard somebody else in our group was talking about this at a recent meeting, so I knew it was going to be a good topic.
We've had a lot of questions from farmers, right? It's the most common question we get. What else do we have? What do we do? Mm-hmm. What do we do? We can't move all our wean-to-market barns. We can't move location. What else can we do?
Yeah.
And so that's what forces this part of the conversation. Well, we know the technology works. Is now the time?
Okay. So if producers out there are listening, or somebody's listening, they have questions, I would say they can call you, Adam. They can call me. Anybody in our office would at least have some beginning of a conversation for how this might work, especially producers that were listening and want to do this. Please reach out to us in our group. Mm-hmm. I know I thought about it with some clients. You've actually gone through and executed some of these programs with your clients. This is a new thing. Please call us. If nothing else, we'll connect some dots for you for other people that might be able to help. Mm-hmm. And I think that's about it. I appreciate you being here, Adam.
Oh, it's fun, Spencer. Yeah, I'm excited about it, so thanks for having me.
Good deal. Thanks to our listeners, too, for tuning into this episode of the SwineTime Podcast, and join us for the next one. The SwineTime Podcast was created for the pork industry and individual pork producers around the country. Hosted by me, Dr. Spencer Wayne with Pipestone Veterinary Services, the podcast contains pork industry news, advancements in animal care, and how to enhance your productivity. Find the SwineTime Podcast at www.pipestone.com or on your favorite listening platform.